So, what really happens when you don't get enough sleep? Hello, everyone. This is Tara with Be Well Healthy Living. Sleep deprivation. What is it, and what actually happens when we don't get enough sleep? Sleep is one of those key parts of our overall health that is so important because that's when our body fixes itself. That's when it restores itself. That's when it gains the strength to perform the necessary functions that it needs to perform to be healthy and well overall. So, I'm going to tell you a little anecdotal story. A couple weeks ago, I was flying to another state and I had a long layover at the Denver International Airport. And it was already a long layover to begin with. I already had a 6 hour long layover. But to make matters worse, it was postponed. So it was a 10 p.m. boarding time, and it was scheduled to arrive at the destination at midnight at the where it was going. So when it came 10 p.m., everybody at the gate was going to board, and then they decided that they were going to move us to an entirely different gate at boarding time. So the entire flight everybody that was on the flight had to move all the way to a different gate, and it wasn't close. It was pretty far. So everyone was like, okay, well, whatever, we're going to get on our plane. So everyone gets the new gate. Then we had to sit at the other gate for another hour. So our plane was already delayed for approximately an hour. And then we go to board the plane finally. So we all board, we're all ready, and we're all sitting there on the airplane. And so I'm thinking maybe we're going to have a slight delay, maybe half hour getting in, because they can make up some time. So maybe about half hour at our destination. And we're all just sitting there at the gate, sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting. And finally, the pilot gets on and says there was an issue with a seat. And apparently they were waiting on another seat from another airplane, and then he had to fill the paperwork and they'd be on their way, right? Wrong. So we're sitting there for a little bit longer, and then we get the announcement from the pilot that everybody had to get their things, and exit the airplane. And then we all had to exit the airplane and then go to yet another gate that luckily that one was close by. So everyone exited the plane, goes to the new gate. Then we're sitting there waiting for a little bit. Then we scan in again and we start lining up ready to board the new plane when we get the unfortunate announcement that the flight crew had timed out and they were no longer able to fly. So what did that put this disastrous flight that was delayed and delayed and delayed? Well, it was already at that point, probably around, I'm going to say, almost midnight. And this manager comes out and announces that unfortunately, we can't get on a flight to our destination at this time. However, at 6 a.m., we would be able to board and get on the new flight. Actually, it was a 6 a.m. departure time, I believe a 5 a.m. Boarding time. So that put the entire packed flight, it was a full flight. So everybody on this flight now had already been postponed and delayed at the airport for 2 hours. And now we were told that it was not going to leave until another 6 hours later in the morning. So that left all of us on this full flight to fend for ourselves in the Denver International Airport. Now, as you can imagine, it got a little crazy. People were upset. There was a lot that, people may do with what they can. But what was interesting to me is in the hours after that and watching, it was a great moment for me as a health and wellness coach and as someone who's fascinated by this subject, to be able to watch the behaviors and observe behaviors of how everybody else around dealt with it. So what I observed was the majority of the people were at first angry, of course, because of the delayed flight and not getting in on time and everything like that. So then I watched this general anger, and at this point, people weren't seriously tired. And then what happened was people sometimes in that process, they got a little delirious, almost like a little loopy, a little bit kind of crazy. And then they kind of get silly. And then they go from this angry. And it kind of was like this weave where people would go in and out, where people would go from this deliriousness of silliness and loopy to like very irritable and very angry. So there are like food vouchers didn't come in on time, and I had to wait in line again because I had to wait in line afterwards to get the food vouchers. Those didn't come in, had to wait a second time to get food vouchers. And everybody in that line was just irritable, angry. The poor lady that was dealing with the airline, she was snapping at the customers were snapping at her. You think there's going to be a brawl and people are going to fight. I mean, it was crazy. This is what happens when there's sleep deprivation, is that people get irritable because their mood regulation goes out the window. So I observed irritable, angry, and then that deliriousness in between, and people make poor decisions. At that point, I didn't get any sleep. I was already in the Denver airport for 6 hours. What was supposed to be a 6 hour layover turned into a 14-hour layover. So I was in the Denver airport for quite a bit of time. And I was prepared with my meal choices up to a certain point, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm stuck in the airport. I'm just at that point it was like anything, because I didn't get any sleep myself either. And how I handled it, what can you do? I can get angry over a delayed flight, but there's only so much you can do. Why am I going to be angry over something I cannot change? So I just better go with it and better roll with it. So my daughter and I made the best we could and just kind of explored the concourse and had fun with it, I guess. I mean, we did get a little bit irritated at each other at a couple points, but I think for the most part, she handled it like a champ, and I think I handled it okay as well. Getting on the plane, boarding at 5 a.m., families everywhere at this point had been up all night or gotten very disrupted sleep, sleeping on the floor, on the seats at the airport, and babies were crying on the airplane. I mean, it was just chaos. Everybody was just anxious to get to the destination, and it was awful. So that's a one-time deal. We can probably roll with it, but even in that short anecdotal experience, it was very obvious the effects of sleep deprivation. Now, sleep deprivation can do so many other things as well. There's a lot of other chronic diseases that can happen when you don't get enough sleep on a regular basis. Now, one time off, an airport delay, that's a cause for one thing, but that's temporary. That's not all the time. Some people actually have chronic problems where they don't get enough sleep on a regular basis, to the point where 1 in 3 Americans have sleep issues. They're not getting enough sleep. And 50 to 70 million Americans have chronic sleep disorders. That is a lot of people that have issues with sleep. So why is this so important? Because it affects our whole body. So some of the chronic health problems that can arise from when you don't get enough sleep. You can have heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, stroke, obesity and diabetes and weight related issues because your hormonal balance doesn't work properly. Mood disorders, as I saw on the airplane. So mood disorders such as depression and anxiety, heightened anxiety, relational disorders or social problems from irritability, because if you're in a marriage and you're not getting enough sleep, or your kids, and the slightest little thing that happens that's going to set you off, and you're going to respond in a way that you might not normally respond if you had gotten enough sleep. So you're going to be irritable, and then that's going to cause interrelational personal problems with the loved ones around you, friends, family, coworkers, etc. Immune system dysfunction is another one. You're going to find that you're going to wind up getting sick more often because your immune system doesn't have the ability to fight off viruses and anything else that might come in to invade your body. So you need that rest to be able to fight those things. You're going to have intense cases of brain fog. Your brain is not going to be able to function properly. You're going to be forgetful. You're going to make mistakes. And then you also put yourself in physical danger because you have impaired judgment. So for example, if you have, let's say you're driving a car and you're going to and from work and you are in serious sleep deprivation, you might have a case of road rage, or you might think you have enough space to merge over when you don't, or there's certain situations. So that can actually put you in physical danger of getting in an accident. That's why they say it's pretty common to get in accidents pretty close to your house. Because I think a lot of times when you get home, or when you're coming back, when you're leaving for work, you're tired, and when you're coming back, you're tired. So oftentimes you let your guard down and you make bad choices. So there's a lot of different problems that can happen with sleep deprivation. And so, why do we get sleep deprivation and what happens? Certain lifestyle choices can affect that. Now, some are choices, some are more physical health issues. Like sometimes people can have sleep issues if they have other chronic illnesses that affect it. Like, let's say, for example, sleep apnea is one thing that really will affect quality of sleep. And I've seen people with sleep apnea, it's like they don't get enough quality sleep during during the evening, and so they'll fall asleep. They'll just like nod off. They can't stay awake through a movie. They're not paying attention through conversations. It's really detrimental to health if there's sleep apnea. That's why CPAP machines have been created to help people with that. But I would like to take a deeper look at the cause of sleep apnea. Oftentimes, people that are overweight, obese, have diabetes, have other issues going on, have issues with sleep apnea. So that's one. People with like restless leg syndrome or other people have issues with sleepwalking and issues like that. That could be a reason. Um, Not prioritizing sleep or poor behaviors. For example, if you're having caffeinated beverages too close to bedtime, or you're using too much screen with that blue light coming in, you're not going to get that rest. Or not prioritizing sleep. You're doing other things and you're not prioritizing it. Too much alcohol or even drug use might affect the way that you are sleeping. People who work the overnight shift, and that's a hard one because some people work overnight shifts because that's what they have to do. That's when their job is. That's when they have to work. And there's all kinds of amazing needed jobs where people do have to work overnight shifts. So those somebody has to work those jobs. So how can people who work overnight shifts get better sleep? And some of that is going to be personal lifestyle. They're going to have to adapt their life to make sure that they get that good quality sleep, like making sure that when they do get to sleep, that their room is completely dark to recreate that feeling of night as they sleep. So there's a lot of other issues that could affect the way people sleep that way. So that's basically the gist of this video. Is I wanted to stress the importance of getting good quality sleep, why it's so important, the health effects, basically the health problems that you can have if you don't get enough sleep, and what we can do to correct those issues. What can we do to help us have better sleep habits? Now, I'm going to be going into another video here shortly, and I'm going to be discussing a great morning routine that can help you sleep better throughout when it comes time to go to bed at night by actions that you take in the morning. So we're going to be discussing that next, and you can take a link here at this video. And so peace, blessings, and thank you so much for following. Please follow, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.